Hey y'all. All right, so welcome back to my channel. So I was on my way to my appointment earlier, and I had this brilliant conversation that I wanted to talk about, and this brilliant topic that I wanted to talk about. And I was thinking about it so hard, like, we're not really thinking about it hard, just like, oh, because I'm passionate about the subject. And I forgot it. So of course, that pissed me off. I was like, oh my goodness, I knew I should have put it down in my notes because I didn't have nothing to write down at the moment. Write it down with at the moment. But I was listening to one of my favorite tarot readers talk, and she hit on a topic that I already planned to talk about. No, that I was passionate about. And I was like, oh, I could talk about that. So something I've been thinking and something I've been feeling, okay? Like I say, all of these are just my thoughts, my opinions, my beliefs, from what I look at, how I look and study people. Like I tell y'all, I study everybody. I study myself, especially like the situations I've been through. Excuse me. So this is something I strongly believe. I believe that when you have life harder than what you feel like, what you feel like is harder than everybody else, I believe that kind of stuff is brought on by generational curses. Like, it's not just the life that you have right now, it's also the lives that your ancestors and, the people before you had, that they didn't heal. Like, okay, I believe in generational curses, ancestral curses and stuff like that. I believe that whatever your grandmother, whatever your mother, whatever the ones before them, your fathers before them, your mothers before them, whatever they didn't heal, it gets passed on to each generation, each new generation that came on. So an example of that, what I would say is an example of that is like, okay, my mother, she struggled with like mental illness and, not opening up, not talking, not speaking, especially like with her own spiritual gifts and stuff. Okay. And like my father, I believe that my father struggled with his sexuality. He hid his sexuality. And, because both my parents didn't heal that, it came down on to me. Like I struggled with my sexuality for a while because I was, we had like a weird situation growing up where, my sisters and my brothers and I, we humped on each other, So it was like being interested in girls came upon me because I was touched on by another girl. She was a young girl, of course, not old, not a woman, but, So of course that piqued your curiosity as a child, as a little girl, And I was ashamed of it, ashamed that I like girls, you know what I mean? I never down other people for it, but I was definitely ashamed that I liked girls, But me saying all that to say is that when our mothers and fathers don't heal the brokenness in them, the shame in them, if they don't heal, it seems as though it goes off into us. It rolls off right on into their offspring. And because they didn't heal it, we not only have our karma and our traumas to heal, we have theirs as well. So it's like, think about it. That's like double the trauma. And if their father and their mother didn't heal it, they had it to heal, but they didn't. So they passed all those generations of curses and traumas down to us. That's why it seems like we have a much harder life than everybody else around us. And either way, something I learned, you shouldn't compare your life to nobody else's because you don't know exactly what they're facing. You don't know exactly what they've been through. You don't know how their mind works. You don't know their strength. Like, are they strong enough? Were they strong enough to handle some of the stuff that they handle? You just don't know what's going on in other people's lives completely unless they really open to you about it. But either way, we have our own battles and our own traumas and our own wounds to heal, So I just feel like when our life seems much harder, it's definitely because of generational curses and generational traumas, And I feel like that's even more to heal. You understand? That gives me even more reason to heal those traumas and those curses because I have children. I damn sure know that my children don't deserve to heal my brokenness and, the things that my grandmother and my mother and my father and my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather, I have a whole lineage of people who decided that they didn't want to heal. And it wasn't really like, oh, I'm just not going to heal. Truth be told, it was painful for them. And I know, because me healing my own traumas and my own wounds and healing theirs, it is painful. Healing is not easy. It's not fun. I can't lie to you. I will not lie to you. No part of healing for me has been fun. The outcome, though, after I heal a certain trauma has been beneficial, because that heaviness that you feel in your heart, and I know that anybody who's hurting and who, you know, been through some shit, I know that you feel that heaviness. I know that you feel that pain. When you do heal, the relief you feel from it, it's amazing. I mean, I wish I could be able to show you the feeling, but I can't. I can just tell you from my own experience, healing the stuff that was inside of me that was broken, healing my generational curses and my generational karmas, my heart feels so much lighter. If you know what a broken heart feel like, and I'm quite sure if you're watching this channel, you do know what a broken heart feel like. You understand? It is the worst fucking feeling in the world. I mean, not even just a broken heart from lovers. I mean, broken heart from families, from your family, from friends. That shit hurts. And I mean, it does something to you. It weighs so heavy on your soul that it becomes a physical fucking pain. And you walk around agitated and mad at the world. You understand? You want to point the blame at everybody. You want to hurt other people because you're hurting. And some of us know how to hide our pain so well, mask it so well, that we try to make sure that we don't hurt other people because we're hurting. Well, where you have most people who actually want to hurt people because they hurting. You know, the saying they say, hurt people. Well, that's true. Because even though I never intentionally tried to hurt anybody that I love, I have hurt people before, you know, because I wasn't healed and because I was hurting, you know. So that is true. Hurt people, you know, and the only way you can stop that hurting is to heal. But when you feel like your life is worse than everybody else, or you have more trials and tribulations than everybody else, I really, really, really believe it's because you were meant to break generational curses. You understand? I really believe that with all my heart. And after seeing what I've been through with my own healing and breaking my own family curses and stuff.
Mom, I'm going to your room to get some Q-tips.
Okay. I really feel like that when your life is what you say is harder than everybody else around you. Because I know that feeling, you know, I know that saying like my life is so much worse than everybody else. Because it's a time where I would compare other people's life to mine. Like, why do they have it easy? How come they were born with a family that loved them? Or why they have a mother and a father that's together? Or why they have a mother and father who love them, you know? And for a long time, that shit ate me up. I mean, it made me bitter, you know. I remember thinking when I was growing up, I don't ever want to get married. I don't ever want to be in a committed relationship. I don't never want to settle down, because I saw so much brokenness growing up around me, you know, that it was like, well, I guess this is what life is supposed to be like. And you know, it's like I was hating on love, you know, hating on commitment, hating on marriage. I eventually got married, and neither one of us was healed. So let's just say that. And I started growing too. So we definitely grew apart. And the marriage went to shit. But that was a lesson that I needed to learn. You understand? But like I said, I just believe that when you feel like your whole life is worse than everybody else around you, and you have so much, like the traumas and the things that happen to you is like worse than what everybody else around you going through, I just really feel like it really is because you were meant to break those generational curses. Think about the things that went on between your mother and her life, or your father and his life. And if you had if you are close to your grandmother, great-grandfather, grandfather, all of those people, and you know their life story, see how their life resonate with your life. And it might seem like they might not have had it as hard as you, but they did have it hard like you. Like, you'll find that you guys have similar traumas. You know what I mean? Like, okay, an example for that, my grandmother, when she got pregnant with my mother's father wasn't in my mother's life. So my grandfather, he had a whole nother family, You understand? A whole nother life, you know. And he shunned my mother because his wife didn't want her around, because she didn't like my grandmother. Well, my mother ended up getting with my father. Well, you know, my father, he left, you know, for whatever reason. And, you know, he ended up with another woman in another life and they ended up having a child, you know. But even though he did come back around in my life, he was in and out, you know, in and out. You know, then I had a daughter where my daughter father, it was more so like my grandmother. My situation was more so like my grandmother. You know, I had a baby with somebody who apparently had another life, and he not around, you know. And I decided that I'm going to break that. I'm going to break that curse. My daughters will not have to endure that. You know, I'm going to heal from it. I'm going to forgive him. I'm going to, you know, work on myself instead of worrying about what kind of father he could have been to my daughter, or hurting because he's not around and my daughter don't have a father, because that weighed heavy on me as well, you know. So I can only imagine how it weighed heavy on my mother, even though she did make a conscious choice at one point to take my father out of my life, you know, which, to be honest, while I'm grateful to have had my father in my life when he was, you know, now that I'm a mother, I believe that maybe if she would have just left him alone and just kept him out of my life, period, it could have resulted in something better. But that's the past. I can't change it. I can just only learn from it, you know? So I see that I had a lot of burdens placed on me, but for me, plus my own. So what can I do? I can sit around and take it. I can sit around and cry. I can sit around and complain. I can sit around and think about what it would have been like if things was different. But that's not going to get me nowhere. That's not going to help that hurt. That's not going to stop the hurt. Only thing that has stopped that hurt is forgiving and working on myself and, you know, healing. So that's the message for tonight. I might come back with another one if I could think about something else that I'm passionate talking about, because I promise to always talk about things that I'm passionate about. So good night. I'll talk to you guys later if I decide to get back on here.